What say you, NFL? Here are Super Bowlless teams with the best chance to do it in 2025. The Bills lead the way with a 10% chance per FPI. That's only behind the Eagles and the Chiefs. We got more on Buffalo in a bit, but we have 5 would-be first-timers in the top 15 to hoist the Lombardi Trophy in Santa Clara at Super Bowl 60. We now go on trend, looking at teams looking for their first title, starting with the Lions. Detroit's offense was frankly special last season. Led the league in points per game, ranked second only to the Ravens in yards per game and efficiency. The result was a franchise record 15 wins. Mina Kimes, what needs to happen for the Lions to reach a Super Bowl for the first time, but win the thing?
I think the defense needs to be healthy, and they were the unhealthiest defense in football last year, according to FTN Fantasy's adjusted games lost. And I think that return to health, coupled with some of the talent that they added, will help mitigate the offense perhaps taking a little bit of a step back. You get back Aiden Hutchinson, who is one of the best pass rushers in football. You added to the secondary, and you added a run stuffer in the first round of the NFL draft. I really like the direction this defense is going in, and I think they're going to be top 6 or 7 next year.
Good felines abound, too, in Cincinnati. Also looking for...
All right, we're not talking about Cincinnati. We are talking about Detroit. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to have these odds when there's so much turnover from a coaching perspective. You know, we've talked a lot about this, about losing the coordinators and all of that, but we know how great this team is, and I think it's also one of the benefits of having as many injuries that you did last year, where you can really just kind of point to that as being like, that was the problem. There's no other reason for us to believe that we've taken a step back, that we're not good enough, right? Like, you could still use that as momentum building. Like, it's interesting because Colin has talked about this, you know, from the herd. He always refers to, he's a big Dan Campbell fan, but he keeps referring to him as like rah and talks about how you know, that message won't really work anymore necessarily. Part of because they've been a team that has had to chase, and now they're being chased, that they're, you know, they're good enough to be chased and whatnot, and it's no longer like them versus the world. And I would disagree with that in a lot of ways. I think, especially a team like the Detroit Lions, when you think of a team that has struggled for literally decades and is just not a team that people are so quickly to buy into, that you can kind of always create that me versus the world type mentality and that energy, and you lose last year and people are like, see, they're not good enough, and it's just like, no, like we had injuries, we had issues that, you know, it's just, sometimes that happens, it's just the war of attrition. And I don't want to say the majority of the times, but an incredibly high percentage of the time, the healthiest teams go the furthest. Like, you obviously have to be good enough, right? You can't be a Carolina Panthers but healthy and then still somehow, you know, be bad but just win the Super Bowl because you're healthy. But, you know, when the teams are, once there's a certain level of skill and success, it's just like, it's who's healthy. I mean, and sometimes it can be cluster injuries, and sometimes it's just, you're missing a real piece. You're missing your wide receiver one. You're missing, you know, a key lineman, whatever it is. Sometimes it can be enough to sink you. And, you know, obviously the Lions dealing with a ton of injuries. I always go back and forth between pointing to injuries versus pointing not to. I don't like to automatically use them as a scapegoat. Like, even against even for the Lions, who obviously dealt with their injuries, it's like, I still wanted to talk about how the offense failed as well against the Commanders. It's like, don't be so quick just to be like, well, we had all these injuries on defense and that's why we lost. And it's like, well, there's some truth to that, but like, let's actually look at this further. You know, like, it obviously didn't help you, but like, let's try to look at this from, you know, as deep as we can. And I have confidence that the Lions are doing that. They know that they have to be better in all of these moments, and not just 100% saying, oh, it's just injuries. But at the same time, the fact that you were so injured before, you can still use it as like a foundational rallying cry. Not unlike what Amon-Ra St. Brown said, you know, this current off season, when he was just like, hey, just wait until we're healthy. Like, I wish he didn't say, and I talked about this before, I wish he didn't say that out loud, especially as soon as the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I think it's just like, say that to the guys in the locker room, say that to motivate everyone during practices, weight training, and stuff like that. But like, I think that's like a decent way to kind of build some confidence. But I do want to see them kind of take a balanced approach in terms of like, yeah, we were injured, but that doesn't mean that there's still not plenty that we have to work on, right? And I think that is the cool thing about a Dan Campbell, because when you look at something like this, I'm pretty sure he's probably going to be like, I want more than that. 33.2, we're 35.3 points per game, second in yards per game. No, we're going to be first. Like that. There is something to be said about that just relentlessness of just like, no, let's go. So I continue to be really curious to see how a team like the Lions can continue to evolve, because I think they do need to evolve, and it's going to be interesting because they needed to evolve, even if they had the continuity of coaching, but now they don't, and that's where I'm curious to see like what other pieces to this puzzle are going to be added that we may have not seen quite yet. That's what I'm curious to see as well. But it is interesting because I do feel, just like I kind of said how I said earlier when Colin was talking about the us versus them, I think there is a realization as to how popular the Detroit Lions are of a team, of a franchise right now, especially, and how they were, depending on which source you use, they were either first or second. Most of them I saw first, most viewed team in the NFL. And as you guys know, I've been talking about the Detroit Lions from the jump. I've been love what they do and a believer in what they've been building really ever since I saw them on Hard Knocks, honestly, a few years ago. And I think, what was that, in 21, I think, or something, and 22, whatever it was. And it is interesting because I do think this is how the media is. I think, unfortunately, you'll probably get less nuanced conversations about the Lions because of their popularity now, and so the takes are just gonna be on the extremes. It's just gonna be the Lions are winning the Super Bowl, they're the best team in the NFL, or it's gonna be trolling, media trolling the Lions. They're not good enough, this, that, and it's just like, because they know either way they're gonna get some sort of reaction. You guys know I always try to look into the details, try to find the nuance, try to look at all the different sides of a team, of an argument. But I do feel like that's going to happen more and more. And I have a pretty decent track record of predicting how the media will tackle certain topics, because I think it's something that I'm pretty well equipped to try to figure out how the psychology of it all. And to me, now that there's a more realization as to how popular the Lions truly are right now, I guarantee you, in September, October, November, as long as they're good enough to maintain it, which I believe they will be, there's just going to be a lot. I think we're going to come into September, October. We're going to see the most Lions driven content that we've seen in a really long time on all the main shows, right? Like just like how we see very regularly Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Eagles, right? And like those are all blue chip, great franchises and wildly popular with popular quarterbacks and whatnot. I think the Lions were, a second tier below that in terms of how the media was handling it, to be clear. And I just feel as though like the Lions will enter that, as long as they continue to be as competitive as they've been. But what comes with that is just very extreme, concrete, plant the flag takes. This is the best team in the NFL right now. And it's just like, this team is clearly overrated. I think they're misjudged, they're whatever, overvalued. So it's gonna be interesting, it's gonna be fun to unpack. But I just kind of had this realization, because it's just yeah, that's how I feel like it's gonna unfold. And all I can say to Lions fans is like, enjoy it, honestly. And I think it also will come with a very competitive division. I think that also helps springboard it, because you're gonna have some probably pretty intense, dramatic box office games with the Packers, with the Bears, with the Vikings. I mean, even when those teams weren't the best, with the best quarterbacks, coaching staffs, like those games still find themselves to be pretty interesting, and definitely more interesting than some of these other random divisional games that you could get in the past, like the Texans versus the Titans, like pre, CJ Stroud and whatnot. You're just like, that, who cares about that? Like, that doesn't really matter. But right now, there's just so many fascinating stories. You got the Lions, who are clearly the king of, the kings of the mountain, but you have the Bears trying to get there, the Packers trying to get there, the Vikings trying to get there. You have a collection of 3 young to youngish, newish quarterbacks in the NFL now, especially obviously with Caleb and JJ, and Jordan Love's like kind of that hybrid where he's like third year starter now at this point. And Goff, who's a seasoned veteran. So it's like it's a fascinating balance right now, and the storylines are just there for you. And it's going to be hard, I think, to find the reality of who this team is because of the media, because of the popularity of them. And when a team is really popular, it's really hard to get the truth. That I will say. That is, just look at the coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs. Just look at that coverage, man. It's really, really difficult. So I'm going to try my best. I'm excited I love to have to sift through the nonsense and try to figure out where something is true, where something is not true. Like, I love that. I become kind of a junkie for that type of stuff. And especially for a team that I know will value it and will have like interesting conversations. But it's also stressful because there was times that the Lions have done some pretty interesting stuff in a game, and I was like, that was cool, that was great, but I don't know about it. And like, I get a lot of heat for it, and it's just like, guys, like, relax. I'm not doubting the Lions. It's not this. It's just like, let's just try to find the truth in it. Let's try to look beyond some of the hype. And then it's also fun because when things are flowing, you can go into the hype and you can just go into the momentum, and it is exciting. But I just think it's there's a lot at stake for Lions in 2025. I think there's just this momentum and popularity where the bubble got popped a little bit because of the injuries, because of losing first round. And you lost to a Jaden Daniels who's building his own bubble, his own level of popularity with another franchise that has been starving, the Commanders, which is also a massive market. And it was done in pretty spectacular fashion. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm all for it. And I'm definitely, it's funny. I keep looking at the calendar and I'm just like, we're still so far right now. Like, we're past the momentum of leading into the draft. It's like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then you get the draft and people are definitely a little bit extra excited. And now we're like at this lull where it's like that's died down. Everybody understands who the draft picks are. Everyone understands where everyone is right now. And it's just like there's not a lot of excitement right now. But I feel like we just kind of have to get through July essentially, and then we're kind of back in to that mix here. But when I see something like this, when I see the Super Bowl odds for the Lions, I'm like, I think it's fair to say that they could take a step back because of coaching and whatnot, but the roster is so great, and if they are able to stay healthy, and if they have been able to take steps forward defensively, it's like even a step back is still an elite team. Like, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Like, I think it's fair to think that they'll take a step back, and it's just like, doesn't mean that they're still not a top team, so it'll just so fascinated to see. There's a handful of teams, and the Lions definitely being one of them, that I'm just fascinated to see what they look like at this point, because I really look at the Lions as this is like the third year, right? They had the year in 23 and then 24, and I'm really looking at them like this is your third year. You're on your third year of like true greatness, and that's what I'm saying. It's just like, what's that next move? What's this next step that the Lions take? And the unfortunate truth is it could be in any direction. It could be left, right, forward, backward. Like, it really could be. And like, that's what I'm excited to find out. We've seen these moments for the Bills, the Ravens, specifically those teams, because those teams haven't won the Super Bowl. The Bengals and whatnot, the 49ers, less so the Chiefs and the Eagles, because they were able to truly take that step forward and win the Super Bowl, get over it. So I'm really interested to see where this all lands. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions, with all their injuries, all the turmoil that they had, and now losing their coordinators and whatnot, yet still being a, just behind the Eagles' top team for Super Bowl odds? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.